guys, what's up and welcome back to my channel. So for today's video, I'm gonna be sharing with you guys my top 10 favorite palettes for spring. Your girl is feeling the spring vibes today. I'm matching everything, the whole aesthetic is matching, and we're gonna get into it. So if you guys want to see my top 10 favorite palettes for the springtime, then definitely keep on watching. You guys have seen my top 10 favorite neutral palettes. This video is honestly no different, except it's with springtime palettes. I have all 10 palettes we're gonna go through today, but they are not in any particular order. They're not ranked or anything like that. So let's get started with my first palette. The first one is the ABH Norvina Volume 4 palette. I could not remember the volume for a second. I'm like, she came out with so many different volumes. I'm like, what volume is this? This is volume 4. This one honestly looks like a Barbie dream. If Barbie owned a makeup palette, I feel like Barbie would own this palette right here. It is so pretty, perfect for spring. I feel like all of her palettes have like that perfect color story for each season, time of year type of situation, and I love this one so much. This palette does lean very, very pink, but I love it. It's really gorgeous. It is a more higher end palette, and I do find that these shades, you really have to know how to work with them to get them to work for you. But once you become accustomed to the formula of these shadows, then it's like smooth sailing from there. It's super, super easy, but the color stories, I am just obsessed with, and this one is perfect for spring. So the next palette I have is from LUNAR Beauty. This is the Strawberry Dream eyeshadow palette. I think he still sells this. I would be so mad at myself if he does not even sell this palette anymore, but I feel like he does. But this is what the palette looks like. I feel like this is literally such a gorgeous palette. There's some really, really nice pops of color. I love this palette so much. They have a really pretty intense shade in here. This shade is Blue Diamond. It's so pretty. Callie is scratching right now. Guess she's trying to get comfortable. Really gorgeous blue shifting shade in this palette. There's some really gorgeous shades in here. I feel like this is just really perfect for this time of year. If you could get your hands on this, I definitely recommend that you do. I'm not sure if this is like limited edition or if this is a part of his permanent line, but if you get this palette, you are not going to be disappointed. The formula is really great. The mattes are buttery, creamy, pigmented. I love this palette. These shades are really, really bright and intense, so keep that in mind. So this next palette is a palette that I think is a really great companion palette. I don't usually use this palette on its own because I feel like it doesn't give me enough depth, but honestly, the shimmers in this palette are so good, and that is the Huda Beauty Mercury Retrograde eyeshadow palette. Now this palette is honestly has been on sale for quite a minute. I think it's like 50% off on Sephora's site. Not sure if it's still in stock, but I feel like she might be discontinuing this because usually when she marks things down for this long at that big of a discount, it's going to be discontinued. So if this is something you have had your eye on and you want it, I don't think you should wait. I think you should get it now, especially while it's on super sale. But this Mercury Retrograde palette is really gorgeous. It has some really pretty intense shimmers in here. For me personally, it's a great spring palette, but I need this palette in conjunction with another one that's gonna give me that depth that I'm looking for, because anytime I use this palette on its own, I feel like I get the exact same looks over and over again, and I kind of start to get bored with it. But pairing this palette with another one, it's literally A1, it's perfect, and it's still a really gorgeous palette. I love Huda Beauty's eyeshadow formula, and that's why this one is in here. There's some really pretty shades in here. Really, really gorgeous shades. The next palette is a palette that is truly one of my favorite palettes from GLAMLITE. I love this palette so much. It's what I'm wearing on my eyes today, and if this palette does not scream spring to you, then I honestly don't know what does. I'm talking about the GLAMLITE Ice Cream palette. Now, if there are any palette I could tell you to get from GLAMLITE, two palettes. It's the GLAMLITE X Michaela palette, and then this one, the ice cream palette. And Giselle said on her Instagram yesterday that this palette is the second best-selling palette from GLAMLITE, and I truly can see why it is. You guys, the Ice Cream Dream palette is literally my favorite palette I love it. The pastels in here are gorgeous. They truly do show up on the eyes. When I tell you, GLAMLITE did these pastels right. I remember when this first came out, Giselle, the owner of GLAMLITE, was saying how she really wanted to have a palette that had pastels that works on deeper complexions, that were true to color, and she really did the thing with this palette. These pastels are amazing. I am gonna swatch some for you guys because these are just beautiful. They're so true to color, and if you guys know GLAMLITE's formula, like you know that these are very intense shades. Like, look at this. I'm not even like applying much pressure to this, but guys, can we just talk about these pastels? Like, honestly, when I tell you guys, this palette is beautiful for spring. I love it. I honestly use this palette year round. Usually I'm one to pair my makeup looks with the seasons. But this one I have been pulling from a lot recently. I love this palette so much. And my look today, I had so much fun creating this look and playing with this palette. It's just great. And then the packaging is also really great. It makes me want to pull from this palette all the time. The next palette is from Juvia's Place. I feel like Juvia's Place has a palette for literally every season, and me personally, this one is perfect for springtime, and that is the Warrior 3 palette. This is a great rainbow palette, but I feel like it just screams spring to me. It screams colorful. I love the depth in this palette. I just feel like you get so many great looks. You have 7 mattes in here and 2 shimmers, but I feel like these are like the perfect shimmer shades that just look so good with literally anything. They're just really, really pretty shimmer shades. Oh, that's so pretty. Oh my goodness. I feel like this blue kind of has like a little bit of a shift to it as well. I love this palette. The next palette I have is also from GLAMLITE. It's the GLAMLITE Margarita palette. GLAMLITE Margarita palette is such a gorgeous, gorgeous spring palette. This also, honestly, looking at this palette and then looking at the Ice Cream Dream one, I don't feel like you necessarily need both, but if you like smaller palettes, this is a great one to pick from. I just feel like the tones in here are really gorgeous as well. There are some different kinds of shimmers in here from the Ice Cream Dream. I feel like this one is just one step up from a true pastel shimmer. It's not completely pastel, but it's like it's like the middle shade. It's like pastel, and then there's really intense, you know, deeper shades. It's like the middle shade. I just love this palette a lot. There's some really fun colors in here. It just screams spring to me. These 3 palettes are from ColourPop. Now, ColourPop does really great color stories, especially monochromatic. And when it comes to this time of year, these are the 3 palettes that I pull from. These are pastels that I feel like show up really well on my skin tone. I feel like I don't have to do too much building to get them to show up. Now, the first palette is the Lilac You a Lot palette. This is my favorite monochromatic purple palette that ColourPop has ever come out with. This is just really pretty. I feel like this is also Ariana Grande in an eyeshadow palette. I feel like this palette is kind of named after her too, just from the shadow names. But I feel like if you are interested in pastels, but you also want a palette that gives you depth, this is a really, really good one. You can play around with this, create a really great variation of different looks. I feel like you're not gonna get the same look every single time, so that's why I really like this palette. The other one is the Cloud Spun palette. Now this one, I feel like you also can get great depths in this. I will say there is a pressed glitter in this and a Super Shock shadow. There's a ton of different finishes in this palette, but if you don't like pressed glitters, you're not gonna like this palette, but I do think this is a great palette that shows up well. You have pastels in it, and it also gives you enough depth in it. Not extreme depth, but it gives you a good bit of variation for your looks. The On Cloud Blue palette is truly so cute. I love the tones in this palette. Now, talk about depth in this palette. Look at how deep this blue goes. This one is great. There is no pressed glitters in here, but there is one shade in here that kind of functions like a pressed glitter, but it's not a chunky glitter. Like it has a base to this one. It's really, really fine, super, super fine. Honestly feels like a Super Shock, but it's so pretty. There is another pretty shimmer in here. Oh, I just love the tones of blue that you get in this palette. I love the different variations you get. just look at these different tones of blue. Like, it's so pretty. I love it so much. It's such a cute palette. And then lastly, the last palette I have to share with you guys is the bperferct Cosmetics Carnival 3 Love Tahiti palette. Now, this palette, I love it. It's really gorgeous. I honestly feel like this is a great spring and summer palette. It is very vibrant, but this is the kind of palettes I would pull from. I feel like this one is just one of those palettes I have to have in rotation this time of year that really helps to deepen up a look, a pastel look in the outer corner. I just need something that has a little bit more color to it. That's not just true pastels, even though you do get quite a few pastels in this palette. I just love this one. This one's honestly my favorite one from the Stacey Marie line. So that's that one. So those are the 10 palettes that I think are great for the springtime that are in rotation for me to pull from. I really love those palettes. They're really great. I'm excited that I get to play with those again because I honestly wouldn't use most of those palettes in the winter or the fall, but I'm really excited to be diving into those palettes again. Really excited. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. I hope this video was also helpful in trying to decide what palettes are great to pull out for this time of year. If you're one of those people that love to do your makeup according to the season, of course there are no rules to makeup. You do not have to do pastels in the spring. You can do pastels in the fall, in the winter, whenever you want. Me personally, I just feel like it just goes with my mood and the kind of clothes I like to wear, hence this really cute pastel shirt. I just like to match my makeup with the seasons. It's fun. It gives me a reason to pull out these palettes, I guess, kind of like shop through my stash for palettes like this. But I hope you guys enjoyed today's video. Let me know your thoughts down below, and I will see you guys in my next video. Bye, guys.